Welcome to Grave of the Shadows, where forgotten images come to life and reveal the dark secrets hidden in the past. Today, we delve into one of history's most enigmatic photographs, an image taken in 1911 of a young girl holding roses. At first glance, it appears to be an innocent, timeless moment. Yet there's something in the girl's expression that doesn't quite fit. Her face, though childlike, carries a depth of solemnity far beyond her years. What makes this photograph even more mysterious is that, for over a century, it remained untouched, locked away in the dusty archives of Ravensshire County. No one had noticed the unusual presence behind her, hidden in the shadows. A simple image, yet it hints at something far darker, something that has lingered in the forgotten corners of history, waiting for the right moment to be uncovered. But what if this image isn't just a photograph? What if it holds the key to a mystery that no one has dared to solve? Historians and paranormal researchers alike have long wondered if this photograph is more than just a relic of a bygone era. As we zoom in and freeze-frame this image, new revelations emerge, taking us down a rabbit hole that blurs the lines between reality and the supernatural. Could there be more to this image than meets the eye? What truths are hidden within the frame? Prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown as we unlock the secrets of this haunting photograph. Make sure to subscribe to Grave of the Shadows and comment below with your thoughts. Could this photograph hold the answers to a forgotten mystery? Let's explore together. The photograph in question was taken in the spring of 1911, a time when the world was on the brink of monumental changes. The Industrial Revolution had transformed society, and the world was still reeling from the Titanic disaster just months before. It was an era of innovation, but also one of deep social change. Amidst this shifting world, a seemingly simple photograph was captured on the grounds of the Blackwood estate in Ravensshire County. It featured a young girl, no more than 7 years old, standing in a garden, clutching a delicate bouquet of freshly cut roses. The girl, Elellaner Blackwood, stood frozen in time, her solemn expression captured in perfect clarity. Her eyes, dark and penetrating, seemed to carry the weight of something unspoken, something far beyond her years. This photograph, labeled simply Eleanor, May 1911, would remain forgotten in the archives for over a century, until it was uncovered during a routine historical preservation effort. The Blackwood family, prominent industrialists and owners of a vast estate in Ravensshire County, had long been known for their wealth and influence. Thomas Blackwood, the family patriarch, was an astute businessman who had made his fortune in textile manufacturing, a field that had boomed during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. But beyond his business endeavors, Thomas was also an avid photographer, a hobby he had taken up with great passion after the advent of more accessible camera technology in the early 1900s. The Blackwood estate was a sprawling Victorian mansion, surrounded by meticulously maintained gardens that had become famous in the region for their beauty and variety. These gardens, particularly the rose bushes, were a source of immense pride for the family. Thomas was especially enamored with the exotic flora and had a particular fondness for growing rare and prize-winning roses. His love for these flowers would later play a significant role in the mystery that would unfold. On the day the photograph was taken, Elellaner, the youngest member of the Blackwood family, was playing in the garden, a common pastime for the children of the household. Dressed in a simple white dress, her golden curls framed her face as she stood by the rose bushes, holding a bouquet of freshly picked flowers. It was a moment of innocence, seemingly captured forever, but as time passed, the photograph would come to represent much more than a simple snapshot of childhood. Despite its simplicity, there was something profoundly unsettling about Elellaner's expression in the photo. While most children in such portraits wear expressions of innocence or joy, Elellaner's face bore a solemnity that seemed out of place for a child so young. The look in her eyes was distant, almost as if she was aware of something that no one else could see. It was a gaze that hinted at a knowledge beyond her years, a perception of the world that few children could grasp. For many years, this photograph was tucked away, largely forgotten among the countless other family portraits that Thomas Blackwood had taken. The Blackwood estate, with its sprawling gardens and pristine lawns, had long been a place of wealth and influence, But by the early 20th century, its grandeur had begun to fade. The estate, once a symbol of the family's success, had become a relic of a bygone era, just like the photograph itself. The photograph remained in the archives of the Blackwood Historical Society, an obscure image among thousands of others from the same period. The Blackwood family had become just another footnote in the history of Ravensshire County, their name fading into obscurity after their sudden and mysterious disappearance in August 1912. It wasn't until the late 1990s when Dr. Elizabeth Morgan, a historian with a particular interest in early 20th century photography, was granted access to the collection, that the photograph of Elellaner was rediscovered. Dr. Morgan, who had spent much of her academic career studying the technical advancements in photography during the late 1800s and early 1900s, was initially focused on studying the photographic techniques used by amateur photographers like Thomas Blackwood. However, as she sifted through the dusty boxes of glass plates, she came across the image of Elellaner. There was something about the child's expression that caught her attention, a look that seemed to convey both innocence and a depth of emotion that was difficult to place. This photograph, it seemed, was hiding something more than just a moment frozen in time. Intrigued by the image, Dr. Morgan decided to examine it more closely. Using modern digital scanning technology, she created high-resolution copies of the photograph to study it in greater detail. It was during this process that she noticed something peculiar. In the background, partially obscured by shadow, there appeared to be a figure standing among the rose bushes, just barely visible at first, but unmistakably human in form. This discovery would mark the beginning of a journey into the past, one that would uncover more than anyone could have anticipated. The photograph, once considered a simple relic of history, had become the key to unlocking a mystery that had remained hidden for over a century. It wasn't until Dr. Elizabeth Morgan, a respected historian of early photography, unearthed the photograph of Elellaner that the long-forgotten mystery began to unfold. Dr. Morgan, known for her meticulous research into historical photographic techniques, had been granted access to the Blackwood family archives as part of her broader study into the evolution of photographic methods during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. At first, she had no reason to suspect that one photograph, among many, would unravel an enigma that had remained unsolved for over 100 years. Dr. Morgan's primary goal was to examine the technical advancements in photography during the early 1900s, particularly focusing on the work of amateur photographers like Thomas Blackwood. Yet, as she flipped through hundreds of glass plates, one photograph captured her attention. The image of Elellaner, holding a bouquet of roses in the garden, stood out not just because of its historical value, but due to the child's unusually solemn expression. The look in Elellaner's eyes seemed to suggest that she knew something the rest of the world did not. Intrigued, Dr. Morgan decided to use modern technology to enhance the image. With digital scanning techniques and high-resolution imaging, she was able to scrutinize the photograph with a level of detail that had never been possible before. What she discovered sent a chill down her spine. In the background of the photo, barely visible at first, was a figure, a woman standing among the rose bushes watching the young girl. At first glance, the figure appeared to be nothing more than a trick of the light, an anomaly in the shadows. But as Dr. Morgan enhanced the image, the figure became clearer, and what had initially seemed like a fleeting shadow began to take on more substance. Was this figure merely an optical illusion, or was it something more? Dr. Morgan couldn't shake the feeling that this photograph contained something far more significant than a simple portrait of a child in a garden. She enlisted the help of Dr. James Chun, a specialist in digital image restoration, to further enhance the image using more advanced techniques. Dr. Chun, a brilliant computer scientist, had developed algorithms specifically designed to extract hidden details from damaged or degraded images. Together, they painstakingly enhanced the photo, pushing the limits of technology to uncover whatever secrets lay hidden within the frame. As the image became clearer, the figure in the background transformed from a vague shadow to something far more unsettling. It was a woman, but not a typical human figure. Her limbs were elongated in unnatural proportions, her face obscured by shadow, and her posture seemed stiff, almost unnatural. This discovery led the researchers to a chilling conclusion. The photo may not just be a snapshot of history. It may be evidence of something supernatural. Dr. Morgan and Dr. Chun began to investigate further, diving into the history of the Blackwood family, the estate, and any connections to local folklore. What they uncovered was both fascinating and terrifying. Local legends about the Blackwood estate spoke of strange happenings in the Rose Garden, of eerie sounds heard late at night, and of an apparition that was said to haunt the grounds. The figure in the photograph bore an unsettling resemblance to these legends, an entity that some claimed had been haunting the estate for years. The more they investigated, the more questions arose. Was this figure in the photograph truly supernatural, or was there another, more rational explanation? The search for the truth had only just begun, and with every discovery, the line between history and the paranormal grew blurrier. What had begun as a simple study of early photography had now become a quest to uncover the dark secrets of the Blackwood family, and the chilling mystery behind the photograph that started it all. As the investigation into the photograph of Elellaner Blackwood deepened, Dr. Elizabeth Morgan and Dr. James Chun realized that the next step was crucial. They needed to enhance the image. The photograph had been taken in 1911, and while it was undeniably clear for its time, the advancements in digital technology allowed them to scrutinize every detail with unprecedented precision. Initially, the image seemed like nothing more than a child standing among a cluster of roses, her face frozen in a somber expression. But with each enhancement, subtle details began to emerge that were invisible to the naked eye. The true nature of the photograph began to unfold, as the team worked tirelessly to extract every possible detail using modern imaging techniques. Dr. Chun, an expert in digital image restoration, took the lead in processing the photograph. He applied a series of sophisticated algorithms designed to bring out the finest details in the image. At first, the results were barely noticeable, just slight improvements in contrast and clarity. However, as the team pushed further into the enhancement process, the changes became startling. The first significant discovery came when Dr. Chun adjusted the brightness and contrast of the image. The shadows in the background, which had previously been indistinct, began to reveal a figure. At first, it was only a faint outline, almost imperceptible, but as they enhanced the image further, the figure became clearer. It was a woman, an unmistakable silhouette standing behind Elellaner in the Rose Garden. The figure was completely out of place, and it didn't match any of the family members or known visitors to the estate. This initial discovery was enough to send a ripple of unease through the research team. The figure's posture was stiff and unnatural, almost like it had been frozen in place. The more they enhanced the photograph, the more disturbing the figure appeared. The woman's proportions were all wrong, her limbs too long, her neck too thin, and her face obscured by shadow. But what truly unsettled the team was the way the woman seemed to be looking directly at Elellaner, as if she were standing just inches behind the young girl. As the team worked tirelessly to reveal more, the figure's strange features became more pronounced. The woman's arms, though difficult to make out clearly, seemed to extend toward Elellaner in an almost predatory way. Yet Elellaner, in her innocence, seemed completely unaware of the presence behind her, her gaze fixed ahead as she held the bouquet of roses. Dr. Morgan, who had initially suspected that the figure could have been a trick of the light or a photographic flaw, was beginning to reconsider. The more she looked at the enhanced image, the more she became convinced that there was something otherworldly about the photograph. The figure wasn't merely an artifact of a damaged plate. It was a clear and deliberate presence in the frame. As the enhancement process continued, other peculiarities began to emerge. Dr. Morgan noticed that the roses in the photograph seemed to have an unnatural quality. While the flowers appeared vibrant, they lacked the typical texture and depth that one would expect from a real bouquet. They almost looked artificial. This observation further fueled her belief that the photograph contained more than just a captured moment in time. It was as if the roses were part of a larger, unseen narrative, a story waiting to be uncovered. By the time Dr. Morgan and Dr. Chun had completed their digital enhancements, the image of Elellaner holding roses had transformed from a simple family photograph into something much darker. The eerie figure in the background was no longer a fleeting shadow but a clearly defined entity, watching, waiting. And as the team pondered these unsettling revelations, They couldn't help but wonder, was this photograph capturing more than just a moment? Was it a glimpse into something far more disturbing, something that had been hidden in the shadows for over a century? As Dr. Elizabeth Morgan and Dr. James Chun continued to investigate the enhanced photograph of Elellaner, they were no longer just dealing with a simple piece of history. The image had revealed a disturbing presence, something beyond the bounds of conventional explanation. The figure in the background, a woman whose proportions were unnaturally distorted, seemed to reach toward the young girl with an eerie and deliberate intent. The more they examined it, the more they realized that their investigation had taken an unexpected turn. What was initially a historical photograph was now a potential window into the supernatural. Dr. Morgan, ever the skeptic, struggled to reconcile the paranormal implications of their findings with her scientific mindset. She had spent her career studying early photography, focusing on the technical aspects and historical context of images like the one in front of her. Yet, as the enhancements continued, she could no longer deny that something strange was unfolding. There was no technical explanation that could fully account for the anomalies they were seeing. The figure in the photo appeared too deliberate, too intentional, to be a mere flaw or trick of the light. This realization led them to explore alternative theories. Could the photograph somehow capture a paranormal event? Had Elellaner been caught in the midst of something beyond the ordinary, something that transcended time and space? Theories of hauntings, apparitions, and supernatural forces soon began to swirl around their investigation, giving rise to a chilling possibility. The Blackwood estate might be more than just a historical site. It might be a place where the boundaries between the living and the dead were thin, where something ancient had been unleashed. The first theory that gained traction among the researchers was tied to the estate's history. The Blackwood family's mansion was not the only notable property in the area. The estate was built upon land that had once belonged to the Thorne family, a reclusive, eccentric group with a long history of strange happenings. According to local folklore, Evangeline Thorne, the last member of the Thorne family, was a woman obsessed with roses, particularly a variety she had developed that was said to bloom in shades of black, unlike any rose known to man. Legend had it that Evangeline had made a pact with something supernatural in order to perfect her roses. Some locals believed she had traded her soul for the ability to grow flowers of unmatched beauty. Evangeline's death in 1887, during a terrible winter storm, had only fueled the rumors surrounding the Thorne estate. The stories suggested that her spirit still lingered in the garden, watching over the roses she had cultivated. Some whispered that the garden itself was cursed, a place where the dead could communicate with the living, particularly through the roses. This theory, though rooted in folklore, began to gain a sense of credibility in light of the photograph's eerie findings. Could the woman in the background be Evangeline's spirit, or something that had taken on her form? The elongated limbs, the unnatural posture, these were traits that seemed to fit the local descriptions of Evangeline's appearance after her death. But why was she so fixated on Elellaner? What connection did the young girl have to the Thorne legacy? Another theory proposed by Dr. Chun was that the photograph was capturing something more metaphysical, a glimpse into another realm or dimension. As they examined the image, Dr. Chun noted that the roses themselves seemed to hold a strange energy, their spectral signatures not entirely matching those of any known rose species. Could the photograph have caught a transient moment from a parallel dimension, one where the laws of reality were bent and time flowed differently? As the theories mounted, it became increasingly clear that the photograph was not merely an artifact from the past. It had become a focal point for something much larger, a mystery that spanned generations, connecting the Blackwood family, the Thorne family, and the supernatural. But what was the true nature of this force? Was it simply a spirit tied to the estate, or was it something far more dangerous, something that had been waiting for the right moment to reveal itself? The more Dr. Morgan and Dr. Chun dug into the theories, the more they were drawn into a world where history, folklore, and the paranormal intertwined. The photograph had uncovered a hidden truth, one that neither of them could have ever anticipated. And with each new discovery, the mystery deepened, leading them further into the unknown. As the investigation into the photograph deepened, Dr. Morgan and Dr. Chun began to realize that the eerie presence in the image was not just a figment of imagination, nor a random anomaly. There was a disturbing connection to the history of the Blackwood estate, one that intertwined with local legends and unsettling events from the past. What they initially thought was a peculiar but isolated photograph was now being linked to a much larger, darker story. One that stretched back decades, even centuries. The Blackwood estate, located in Ravensshire County, had always been surrounded by whispers of strange happenings. The land on which it stood had originally belonged to the Thorne family, whose eerie reputation had been cemented long before the Blackwoods ever took residence. Evangeline Thorne, the last member of the family, was said to have been obsessed with creating the perfect rose, particularly a black rose unlike any other. Local folklore suggested that her obsession led her down dark paths, including rumored dealings with supernatural forces. Evangeline's mysterious death in 1887, reportedly during a brutal winter storm, added to the legend. Neighbors claimed she had died among the very roses she had cultivated. Her body found frozen in the garden with an expression of terror on her face, and her arms unnaturally elongated, as if stretched by some unnatural force. Some even speculated that Evangeline's daughter, Charlotte, had vanished around the same time, though her body was never found. When Thomas Blackwood purchased the estate in 1898, he dismissed the local legends as superstition. He focused on restoring the gardens, particularly the unique black roses, which had survived years of neglect. But despite his efforts to transform the property into a symbol of wealth and progress, the connection to the Thorne family's eerie past remained. The roses, once a symbol of Evangeline's obsession, had seemingly retained their mysterious and possibly dangerous allure. As Dr. Morgan delved into the history, she uncovered evidence of Evangeline's obsession with the roses, sketches and notes that suggested she had been trying to breed a perfect flower, one that would open a gateway to another world. Could the photograph of Elellaner be linked to this very obsession? Was it possible that the girl, unknowingly, had become part of a far-reaching story involving forces beyond human understanding? The connection between the Blackwoods and the Thornes was no longer just a matter of property ownership. It was a thread that seemed to bind the past and present in a way that defied reason. As the investigation reached its peak, Dr. Morgan and Dr. Chun were on the brink of a breakthrough. They had uncovered enough unusual evidence to suggest that the photograph of Elellaner held secrets far beyond what they had originally imagined. The eerie figure in the background, the strange roses, and the unsettling parallels to local folklore had all pointed in one direction. Something supernatural was at play. Yet, it wasn't until they delved deeper into the hidden archives and continued their enhancements that the truth finally began to surface. Dr. Chun, working late into the night with the enhanced image, stumbled upon something that would change everything. As he zoomed in further on the photo, particularly around the area where the woman's figure stood, a new detail emerged. The background, once blurred and distorted, revealed an intricate symbol etched into the ground beneath the figure, a symbol that resembled an ancient occult marking. This discovery was chilling. The symbol had been carefully hidden by the layers of time, but now, in the high-resolution image, it was unmistakable. Dr. Morgan quickly cross-referenced the symbol with her research on the Thorne family. She was shocked to find that it closely resembled a sigil that had been linked to dark rituals once practiced by Evangeline Thorne herself. Local legends spoke of the sigil being part of a ritual to bind spirits to the land, using the roses as a conduit to other realms. This revelation sent a wave of dread through the team. It wasn't just a random apparition or a figment of the camera's limitations. What they had uncovered was a direct link between the Thorne family's occult practices and the mysterious presence in the photograph. The woman in the background was not a ghost, but something far more malevolent, an entity bound to the estate by the very rituals Evangeline had performed. But that wasn't all. In the same image, a small detail caught Dr. Chen's attention. Elellaner's bouquet of roses, which had seemed so ordinary at first glance, now appeared to be glowing faintly. The light emitted from the flowers didn't match any natural source. The roses themselves were now implicated in something much darker. The climactic discovery was clear. The photograph had captured more than a moment in time. It had documented the intersection of the supernatural and the living world, something no one had fully understood until now. The Blackwood family's disappearance, the Thorne family's strange legacy, and the photograph itself were all part of a much larger, more disturbing narrative than anyone had imagined. As the investigation into the photograph of Elellaner Blackwood came to a close, Dr. Morgan and Dr. Chun were left with more questions than answers. What had begun as a simple exploration of early 20th century photography had evolved into an unraveling mystery that blurred the lines between history, folklore, and the paranormal. The image of the young girl holding roses, initially thought to be a simple family portrait, had revealed an unsettling truth. The Blackwood estate, once a symbol of wealth and prosperity, was tied to something much darker. The enhanced photograph had not only captured the eerie figure lurking in the garden, but also uncovered an occult symbol linked to the Thorne family's secretive and dangerous practices. What was once thought to be an innocent moment in time had turned out to be a document of the supernatural, an image caught in the middle of a connection between worlds. The roses, glowing faintly in Elellaner's hands, were more than just flowers. They were conduits, holding the key to the estate's dark past. The revelation that Evangeline Thorne's occult rituals had played a role in binding this entity to the estate left Dr. Morgan shaken. She had spent her career studying the technical aspects of photography, focusing on the historical evolution of the medium. Yet, she now found herself standing at the crossroads of science and the unknown, unable to explain the connection between the photograph, the occult, and the eerie figure that had appeared in the background. The disappearance of the Blackwood family in 1912, a mystery that had baffled investigators for over a century, now seemed to have a more sinister explanation. It wasn't just a tragic vanishing. It was the culmination of decades of hidden, occult practices and a dark force that had been awakened. The figure in the photograph, perhaps a manifestation of this force, had been watching Elellaner, and its presence in the garden was no accident. As the dust settled on the investigation, the question remained: what did the Blackwood family truly encounter on that fateful night? Had they become victims of something beyond human understanding? The answers may never be fully clear. But one thing was certain: the photograph of Elellaner holding roses was not just a piece of history. It was a haunting reminder that some mysteries are far too dangerous to solve. The mystery of Elellaner Blackwood's photograph, the eerie figure in the garden, and the dark legacy of the Blackwood estate remains unresolved. But the investigation has sparked a deeper interest in uncovering the secrets that lie beneath the surface of history. As we've seen, some stories, no matter how much time passes, refuse to stay hidden. If you've been captivated by the eerie discoveries in this tale, don't miss out on more chilling mysteries. Subscribe to Grave of the Shadows to stay up to date with our deep dives into forgotten histories, eerie images, and unsolved paranormal puzzles. Every week, we unravel the stories that lie behind the shadows of history, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Comment below with your thoughts. Do you believe the Blackwood family's disappearance was a tragic event? Or could there have been something more supernatural at play? Have you encountered any mysteries of your own that might connect with this strange tale? Your engagement helps us bring more forgotten stories to light, so share your theories, questions, or experiences. Join the conversation and stay connected with the shadows of history. Don't forget, as we move forward, the story of Elellaner and the Blackwood estate may not be finished yet. There may still be more to uncover.